Welcome to the Real Bible Rob podcast, and I'm so delighted to have a special guest, Lynn Huber, who is a professor um, at Elon University. Is that how
Right.
you say it? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And a professor of religious studies and an expert on the Book of Revelation. And I've followed her on TikTok, and I'm just so intrigued with her commentary about queer perspectives on Revelation, just the use of Revelation in general. And she brings a sense of excitement and love for the book that I just find so helpful.
Yeah. Not many people can say that.
Yeah, not many people can say that because there's so much fear and retribution built into people's use of the book, and I don't shy away from it at all. I am I shouldn't say at all. I have shied away from it sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah, uh, but I try not to because I think it's so useful, and I've preached on it and used it in many ways.
Excellent. Excellent.
And
That's exciting.
so uh, so I'm excited to hear about Dr. Huber's work on this and really wanted to interview her. So I'm just so delighted that you agreed to do this. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation. As you know from my videos, I love to talk about the Book of Revelation.
Uh-huh.
I have, I guess, a love-hate relationship with it, or not a love-hate, but there've been periods in my life when I have had to shy away from it.
Uh-huh.
But I came back to it in graduate school and really enjoy teaching about it and
Uh-huh.
researching it. And I really enjoy talking with different people about it. So it's great to talk with someone who's also equally interested in the book.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask, what is it that causes you to like get approach it and causes you to walk away from it? Is it sort of the bad use of it or what?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we've been talking a little bit, and as you know, I grew up or as I mentioned to you, I grew up in an evangelical church
Mm-hmm.
tradition, and I grew up around people who were really interested in end times thinking, and that
Yeah.
was in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
And so some of us are familiar with Hal Lindsey and those folks.
Yeah.
And I grew up with family members who were really interested in that and
Mm-hmm.
in a church where end times thinking was really prevalent. And it was really negative kind of
Yeah.
end time thinking in terms of, um, you know, you know, Christ is going to come and there's going to be this rapture, but like, most of the world is going to die and there'll be these tribulations. And so there was lots of speculation around it. And in 1988, actually, there was this little book that was going around in my church that I was involved with called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Could Happen in 1988 or
Yeah.
something like that. And that was my first year of college. I was going to be at Northwest Nazarene in Nampa, Idaho in the fall of 1988. And I was concerned about like the rapture happening
Yes.
and my being away from family. That's kind of the level of thinking I was at that point in my life.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, what happens if the rapture happens or the tribulation happens and I'm far from my parents because my parents lived in
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon, which isn't really that far, but in my mind, it was
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
And so I was concerned, but then also I was also a bit concerned that I wouldn't be raptured because I had doubts
Ah,
about Christianity.
yes.
And in that kind of thinking, there is no room for doubt, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Very binary thinking, and there is no room for for questioning or doubting. And I had that. I had sort of I was raised to think critically, I think, even though my parents and family were also kind of evangelical Christians. And
Yeah.
so I felt so that the rapture didn't happen in 1988 for those who are don't remember. And yeah, and so that kind of set me on a path of maybe be more critical thinker about evangelical religion
Uh-huh.
and about the use of revelation. And I kind of avoided it then for years until I was in a PhD program when my mentor said I had to go back to the book. And she's
Right.
like, that's what you're going to work on. So I did.
Well, once saved, always saved does not exist in that world, does it? The
Right,
idea,
right. No,
yeah,
it does not. It does
yeah.
not. And okay, my dog is appearing in the screen here.
Oh,
So
yes. Well, your research
Tommaso.
assistant, yes,
Yes,
Tommaso,
yeah,
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 who makes
yeah.
regular appearances in your videos. So,
He does. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
But he's grown.
when we talked about my daughter's a Nazarene pastor, so that
Hmm.
was a neat thing, way
Connection.
of connection, yeah. And also, I'm
Yeah,
from Portland as well, so
yeah. Small
so
world.
a
Yeah,
small world,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So was becoming a professor part of your plan, or did that? How did can you say a little bit how that evolved and?
Yeah, it wasn't part of my plan. So, I was kind of planless for many years. I was interested in art. Thought I might go into law. I had lots of things. And when I was in college, I got really involved in kind of social justice movements, and that's
Uh-huh.
one of the things I think the Nazarene Church really gave me was this um, sort of this social consciousness, right? About
Yes.
especially people, dealing with homelessness or houselessness and
Right.
um, food scarcity and things like that. And so I actually took some time off in college and worked in that kind of setting and thought I would go into that kind of work, maybe
Mm-hmm.
social justice work based in kind of a not congregational setting, but like a parachurch
Oh,
setting.
uh-huh.
So I
Yeah.
went to seminary with that in mind.
Yeah.
But then was really encouraged by one of my mentors in seminary at Candler School of Theology, a New Testament scholar. His name is Luke Johnson, Luke
Oh,
Timothy
uh-huh.
Johnson. Really encouraged me to do biblical studies
Mm.
and to kind of go the academic route.
Uh-huh.
And that was the first time somebody had said, "You're really good at something," or
Uh-huh.
you have a knack here or a talent, and I think you should cultivate that." And with that encouragement, that's where I began moving forward. And I come from a line of teachers,
Oh, okay.
was in public education. And so, not a line of teachers, but my mom and my aunt.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so, um, I, yeah, so teaching was around me. And so I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
then, prompted me to pursue this. And I love reading and writing, and so it really
Mm-hmm.
is like right up my alley. Putting my dog down.
Yeah.
Faded.
Well, I think biblical studies is extremely important in today's world because
Me too.
we need it, and I'm just so glad that you do that and you speak
Thank
the
you.
way you do because, uh, boy, it's gone because my experiences, I grew up sort of in the 70s in Southern California, mega church culture,
Mhm.
and all of that, and you can just see how far things were taken, especially
Yeah,
with dispensationalism and stuff like that. So
right,
yeah.
right. Well, and I think for me, the thing is I think biblical and studies is also important because so much of our culture, um, or of cultures in the United States,
Yeah.
is shaped by um, biblical thinking and religious thinking. Even people who aren't religious or aren't
Yeah.
spiritual or aren't practicing are living in a world that's been shaped by biblical ways of thinking
Yes.
and by biblical commitments, whether they like it or not. And I think one of my jobs, I teach at a school where we're not religiously affiliated anymore.
Oh, okay.
But so I'm teaching from a perspective. I'm not teaching from a confessional perspective.
Uh-huh.
But I'm teaching people about like, yeah, how their world has been shaped by things like Revelation
Yeah.
um, and and there's a lot of assumptions that come with that. And so the need to be aware of how the Bible shapes the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so I think I love sort of helping students uncover that. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, American Jesus is distinctive. Uh,
yes,
and 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 uh,
definitely is.
and most people in America don't realize that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even people who aren't in a faith community or a Christian don't realize how much they're affected by it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Um, Yeah, so apocalyptic literature can be really hard for people to grasp and its purpose. So I was just wondering if, just for my benefit of who'll be listening, is can you just give us a little overview on interpretive methods for Revelation and how you approach that, how you see it?
Yeah. So I guess first of all, yeah, apocalyptic literature, like mo some people aren't aware of the fact that there are multiple pieces of apocalyptic literature.
Hmm.
And apocalyptic literature, the word apocalypse actually means, it doesn't mean like end of the world. It
Yeah.
means to lift a veil and to reveal something. And so it's about so, I mean, in some way, it's revealing things that the author kind of thinks you don't know,
Uh-huh.
um, and is trying to make them known. And they're things that are from God's perspective, and so they're different. And so it's a very imagistic way, very imagistic type of text. In the
Hmm.
case of Revelation, for instance, John is taken into heaven, right? And so he's seeing things
Mm.
from God's perspective. And since he's seeing
Yeah.
things that humans don't normally see, everything is through comparison, right? So this looks like that. And
Uh-huh.
God looks like a carnelian or a jasper, which are gemstones, you know.
Oh,
So
uh-huh.
everything is
Right.
comparison. And it's because they're things that people don't see. So that makes books like Revelation seem really daunting because it's all metaphorical
Hmm.
and imagistic. And I think keeping that in mind, um, I think is a key to understanding or getting into Revelation, is that he's trying to describe things that haven't been seen. And so there's all this metaphor and
Hmm.
imagery. Um, and I think sort of understanding that, oh, sorry, my dog is barking because there's someone outside my office. Hopefully I can talk over that. Um,
Yeah, I could barely hear it, so.
okay. Um, the Here, hold on.
Okay.
Tommaso. Tommaso does not like talking about apocalyptic literature,
Oh,
apparently. Um,
he doesn't want to
okay.
be left
I'm
out.
so sorry. This is horrible. Let me get him really
Oh,
quickly.
okay.
Tommaso, come here. Come here. Come get cookies. Yeah, there you go. Okay, we'll see if he gets a treat. I'm so sorry.
No, no problem.
But yeah, but so it's purposely imagistic, and I think
Uh-huh.
like when we read it, we have to keep that in mind, and that also that John is really writing to people in his immediate audience, right?
Yeah.
Or in the first century. And so there's a need to attend to maybe what the text means. I mean, we can talk about what the text might mean to us, but there's
Yeah.
also a need to think about what it means for the first century. And I'm going to pause and get him. I'm
Oh,
gonna, do
okay. Here,
you mind if
Mano,
I just turn
yeah.
my camera off for 1 second? I'm going to
Oh,
grab
okay, yeah.
the,
Okay, we're back with Tommaso and Lynn here.
yeah.
So,
I can't promise he won't be vocal anymore. He has a lot to say
yes.
about apocalyptic. Um, but yeah, I think for me with apocalypticism or apocalyptic texts like Revelation, there is this sense of needing to think about. I'm interested in how we can find meaning in these texts in the present
Yeah.
and how they've shaped our culture. But
Hmm.
I'm also very attentive to, and I think we need to think about how John is trying to respond to his audience,
Yes.
which is in the first century. So,
Yeah, I'm
and
kind of
that's get to do
impacted.
history, and history's
I,
fun.
I'm impacted by the way you said that to see things from God's perspective.
Right,
Because I think I get that a lot from this literature as well, and that the anothen, right, seeing things
right.
from a being from above,
Yeah,
and so I that kind of brings up maybe a little esoteric question. Do you hold that there's any connection between the epistles of John and Revelation or the Gospel of John? Uh,
hmm,
what connections do you think are there, stylistically or authorship?
yeah. Yeah, so this is a big question. And actually on TikTok, I get this question a lot, and I've
Uh-huh.
tried to answer it a couple of times, and not nobody is satisfied with my answer because my answer is I don't know.
Yes.
Could be, right? Like I am the quintessential scholar in that sense that I'm like, it's possible, but we don't
Yeah.
know. So as you know, like the book of Revelation says it's by somebody named John. John
Hmm.
was a common name.
Yeah.
Um, the gospel doesn't claim that.
Yeah.
And so, but people still make the connection
Yeah.
between, and historically, people have made that connection.
Hmm.
But since the second century, people have questioned the connection between John, the author of Revelation, and then the gospel and the
Hmm.
epistles. So since the second century, people have said these texts look different.
Okay.
Um, and so we're not sure if they're the same person. And so there have been questioning since the beginning. But at the same time, there are really provocative
Yeah.
attention, like the idea of seeing things from above.
Yeah.
The use of double entendre. We see that a lot
Yes.
in
A lot in the
both
gospel,
Revelation
right?
and in John.
Yeah.
And some of the use of imagery is similar. John is there's a lot of really evocative metaphors
Hmm.
in the Gospel of John, and Revelation is also best understood through the lens of metaphor. And there are really interesting connections.
Yeah.
There's a medieval tradition that I like, and I do have a video about this, about how the author of the Gospel was John, and
Hmm.
that the wedding at Cana was his wedding. He was,
Ah. Uh-huh.
and so he leaves his bride, presumably, and follows Jesus in virginal devotion.
Uh-huh.
And then, because of his virginal devotion to Christ, Christ grants him visions. And so
Oh, okay.
that's why he then has revelation. And in the medieval
Hmm.
time period, there's a number of women who are religious women who are chaste or virginal and
Right.
brides of Christ. And
Yeah.
they understand themselves similarly to John and are also visionaries.
Right.
And so
So that
they, yeah,
monasticism and chastity and things like that are
right.
very important in that period, right? And the
Right. And the idea is because of this kind of devotion, you might be granted this special revelation like the
ah,
apocalypse. So, which I think is, I don't know, I really think that that's a beautiful tradition. And yeah, I'm interested in that. So it's possible. But
yes. Well,
and I
I
think that's the question that we need to ask is like, why is it important and what does it mean to think about these texts as related? Like, does it help us understand them in any? And if
mhm.
it does, I think that's important.
Well, yeah, and I kind of you bring a lot of fun to your conversations about that. And for example, the Gospel of John I think is very humorous. It's fun. It's
Hmm.
funny,
Yeah,
especially if you when you know a little bit of Greek and you can see
right,
it that way. And
right.
is there any of that fun in Revelation as well? I mean, it's a little harder to see that, but
Yeah. Yeah. There is, I think. And there's a colleague of mine, her name is Sarah Emanuel.
hmm.
Um, she is in California. I think I can't remember. I can't remember what university she's at off the top of my head, but she has a whole book on sort of revelation and humor.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, there is humor. Some of it's satire and some of it's kind of
Yeah.
biting humor. So there can be
Yes.
humor, but not necessarily fun humor.
Yeah.
So the critique of Rome in Revelation 17 and 18, when John is using the image of Babylon as this prostitute,
Yeah.
and it's a really misogynistic text. I think that that's like satire, and I think it's kind of supposed to be humorous, but like from the 21st century
Yeah.
perspective, um, not so funny. But yeah, and I think like the image of the beasts are also
Uh-huh.
kind of meant to be humorous. I do talk about it in terms of phallic humor.
Uh-huh.
I've written a commentary on Revelation, and
Hmm.
in that commentary I talk about, which I actually have, I can see it in the background.
Uh-huh.
I actually talk about phallic humor in Rome, how
Uh-huh.
that's popular, and I think Revelation is
Yeah. Yeah.
doing a little bit with that. So I do think that there's some humor. Yeah, and it, and so and but there's definitely like the word play that you see in
Yes.
John. And I think that's one of the really provocative connections. Um, my mentor was a John scholar. Her name was Gail O'Day. She passed
Okay.
away. We started writing this commentary on Revelation together.
Ah.
And she passed away at the very beginning of that process. But I'm very much influenced by her work on John.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and she's very was very interested in sort of the literary elements of it. So it's a beautiful
Ah.
text. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fascinating because of course, our humor isn't their humor, and their humor
Right.
isn't ours. And I think, uh, yeah, the Romans were absolutely obsessed, especially with phallic humor.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see that in
Yeah.
their
Raunchy.
artwork, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's very raunchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe
Yeah.
maybe there is a little connection there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, yeah. So now to talk about sort of the futurist view
Hmm.
of Revelation, which is just dominant, right?
Yeah.
And uh, how do we, you know, uh, how do you get from a culture of fear to more of a, or, looking at Revelation with fear and moving people more toward fascination
Right.
and enjoyment
Ooh,
in literature?
yeah. I love that idea of from fear to fascination. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, how do you cultivate kind of intellectual, or I mean, not intellectual, but curiosity about the book, right?
Yeah.
Um, because there is so much fear. Like people almost treat it as um, a magical thing, right? If I
Yeah.
don't look at it, if I don't read it, then it's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have to deal with it. And that's, I think, really how I was initially. I
Yeah.
mean, not initially, but how I was after, living in fear of the text. I didn't even want to open it because
Hmm.
I thought if you open it, then the things come out, right? And it's fearful.
Yes.
But I do think like learning to think about the New Testament historically
Hmm.
can be helpful. I also think getting into like some of the different ways it's been interpreted, for
Yeah.
me, that was really a way into thinking about the text as not just about like the future or the present, but that this is a book that's been meaningful to people for
Hmm.
thousands of years, right? And people have made meaning from this text for thousands of years. And listening to the different ways they've made meaning and dealt with it,
Hmm.
I think has been helpful for me in terms of kind of making that transition. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so I think, it's a hard thing, but it is kind of a really kind of shift in thinking. And it's a shift away from thinking that this is all about us in the 21st century or
Yes.
20th century, right? And so it's really like also trying to take seriously that this is a book that's had, again, it's spoken to people throughout
Uh-huh.
history, and that those are real interpretations. They're not just, things that you can dismiss. So that the text has had meaning for thousands of years. It's not just about the the future. Um, yeah, to me, that's been the way into it, and trying to think about yeah, think about it historically.
Uh-huh.
Also, I mean, it just really does um, speak to its first century culture, and kind of listen and learning about that to me was really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And what was going on in Asia Minor at the time, and that
right,
whole, yeah, response
right.
to, I don't know if it's a response to persecution as much it is the just sort of the fights in the cities between the
Yeah,
Christians and and others. I
yeah.
don't know.
I wouldn't say persecution. So, I mean, so I think that's often a way people talk about Revelation is that,
Yeah.
people are being persecuted. At that time, there's not like, there's at that time there hasn't yet to be the Roman Empire coming out and saying, this tradition, these
Yeah.
practices are, forbidden, and we're going to sort of um, ground up people and throw them to the beast. But there
Yeah.
is a lot of social pressure, right? So
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
cities and communities, pe- people are, to be a good citizen, you have to do the things that those around you expect. You have to, you know, work, you have to like, eat the meat that's been offered to the god,
Yeah.
or to the emperor. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to, participate in the culture. You have to
Mm-hmm.
do these things that maybe challenge you on sort of more minor levels. So I think people like to think about Revelation as being about, responding to this time of really intense kind of persecution. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more the kind of social pressure that,
Yeah.
that people experience. I mean, like we experience on, day to day. Like, am I going to buy something from this company that supports
Mm-hmm.
political actions that I don't actually think are in line with the gospel,
Yeah.
right? Um, those kinds of little decisions that we make every day that are pressuring us to um, communicate, that are, we're
Mm-hmm.
slowly like giving our power over to the beast instead of to the lamb, right? And so I think Revelation is dealing with a situation where in the cities of Asia Minor in particular, they really want to cultivate um, favor from the Roman Empire. And
Yeah.
John's like, yeah, that's not right. And that is anti-Christ. And so it's those small decisions that you make that are capitulating to the empire that he is trying to challenge. So,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so I think, and he foresees like this is going to get big, I think,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in that way, the text is prophetic because he sees that there's persecution on the horizon and he's seen it. Like there's
Uh-huh.
just been he's writing after the war between Judea and Rome,
Mm-hmm.
when Rome has decimated the Jerusalem temple.
Mm-hmm.
Jews from Jerusalem have been taken into captivity and they have been killed. Like he's seen war. He's
Yeah.
aware. So he
Yeah.
knows what's on the horizon too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good scholarship about Ephesians that I've noticed lately about so people like Lynn Cohick, I think is her
Oh,
name,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, and Sandra
yeah,
Glahn,
yeah,
and it kind of gives you that context of that. Yeah, there was a lot of tension between the various cultic movements in that
right,
era.
right,
Another, but Candida Moss talks a lot about the fact that the persecutions are kind of
right,
overplayed.
right, right.
May have
Yeah, she's
happened
got a
later,
great
but
book called The Myth of Persecution. And
yes,
yeah, and it's yeah, I really recommend it. Her work is amazing. So,
yeah, yeah.
mhm.
And she's online somewhere as well. I've seen her a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But I think that, yeah, I mean, it's part of that persecute. Well, maybe that kind of leads into the next, how we use Revelation today. Certainly
Hmm.
the persecution myth is just all over in Christianity,
Right.
especially American Christianity. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do we use Revelation it, better in that respect? And I also really want to get into a little bit more, so we can talk about some of those problem texts, but I also want to make sure that we talk a bit more about the bride and the whore and
Hmm.
the queer
Yeah.
aspects of
Yeah. Yeah.
but maybe start with, we'll go whichever way you want to go.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think the idea of revelation, I do think revelation can speak to today. And
Hmm.
I think that that's one thing, like, that is one thing I learned kind of in seminary is I worked with this one of my mentors in seminary was Luke Johnson, and he always talked
Uh-huh.
about the Bible as the church's book, right?
Yeah.
And one way of understanding textual authority is that these are the texts, the set of texts that we're in conversation with as the church, however you kind of define that. And you don't have to buy into every part of the text, right? Like, but one of the things about being part of the church is that you're you're in conversation with these. And that's kind of how I understand, Revelation, is that I
Hmm.
don't have to necessarily agree with every part of the book, and I can be critical of the book, but I'm
Hmm.
in conversation with it. Um, and I take it seriously, and I listen to it. Um, and but again, I also have critical thinking skills and things like that. And
Yeah.
so, and there are parts of Revelation that are misogynistic and really
Yes.
problematic. So, and that gets to like the images of Babylon and New Jerusalem, which are imaged as women.
Hmm.
And one is imaged as a sex worker, as this prostitute, and, is really disparaged. And John draws
Yeah.
on Roman, like some of the most misogynistic traditions in
Hmm.
Roman, I mean, or he evokes and sounds like some of the
Yeah.
most misogynistic traditions. Um, in his depiction of Babylon. And then at the end, he describes like, her destruction being like rape and torture
Yeah.
and cannibalized. It's horrible. It's horrible
Yeah.
image. And like as somebody, you know, in the Christian tradition, I say I don't like that and that is a
Yes.
horrible image. Um, but I can do, but we can do that because we're in relation to this book as part of the church.
Mm.
Um, and as a queer interpreter and somebody who a queer interpreter within the Christian tradition, I similarly think it's important to not cede interpretation of the text to
Uh-huh.
people who are just going to use it to diminish LGBTQIA folks.
Yeah.
Um, it is a text that belongs as much to gay and lesbian and queer and trans Christians
Hmm.
as it does to cisgender and heterosexual Christians. And I think queer interpreters do find meaning in the text and can. And there are a lot of things in the book of Revelation that kind of are queer and can be read through that
Yeah.
light. And that's one of the things I try to do. And that's like in my content on TikTok, I kind of lean into that,
Hmm.
um, and try to, well, in a lot of my work, I do as well. So in the commentary I've written and in some of my other writings,
Hmm.
and I do talk in a lot of like New Testament classes. I often zoom in for folks to teach on queer readings of Revelation. And yeah, there are a lot of things in the book that like invite queer interpreters to have fun with it and to find meaning in it.
Do you find that that helps people release the text from its, from its interpretations that people use negatively?
I think so. So there's this um, uh, queer readings, I think, involve a lot of humor
Yeah.
and pushing back at the book. In that way, it's similar to some of what
Yeah.
womanist interpreters do. There's a great, Mitzi Smith is a really wonderful
Yes.
New
Yeah.
Testament scholar.
I've
She
met
is
her
also
actually. Yeah.
okay. She's
She's
also on
amazing.
TikTok.
Uh-huh.
She's, I think it's Womanist Scholar is her name.
Uh-huh.
Um, she's great, and she has this great book about sass and
Uh-huh.
how woman is reading through sass, and it's this pushing back and really calling out.
Uh-huh.
And I think in queer circles, we talk about reading something. Oh, hey, yeah, apparently he doesn't like that. He's
Oh.
gonna eat us. Hey,
He's he's sassing.
yeah, he is sassy. Okay, I'm just getting the treats out. Maybe that'll make him less sassy. Um, but like read text, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, and it's similar. It's like calling things out and like looking for hypocrisy
Hmm.
and saying, "Hey, that's not really what it says," and it's using humor to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I think, yeah, I think that does like yeah, make people not, maybe take the text,
Hmm.
realize that we have some agency in how we interpret the text.
Yep. And if you can yeah, well, if you can laugh at something, then you
Yeah,
can yeah,
yeah,
then you can see it from other angles, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um
If you can laugh at it and it kind of relativizes, I mean, yeah, or at least I think, or maybe not relativizes, but it gives, again, it's agency. It's about
yeah.
my agency as an interpreter. And I think
Yeah.
that that's important. So I think queer reading helps with that, and bringing the sort of humorous to the text too.
I think it does in general. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was talking to
yeah,
somebody about Genesis that way, is just
yeah,
that when you approach Genesis without sort of, in a fresh way, you just
yeah,
go, oh, wow, there's humor here. There's these some of
yeah.
uh, these bombastic characters. There's a lot of bombast in
Right,
in
right.
Revelation as well. So,
Exactly. There's a lot of camp, right? It is over
yes.
the top. It is hybrid. And yeah, and a lot of the characters are really campy characters, like the
Yeah.
Beast, and you just have to laugh at it at
Yes.
times.
Yeah. Yeah. How else can you deal with it?
Yeah, exactly. Like the Beast, who yeah, has these multiple horns and multiple heads and like
Yes.
what kind of attention are you trying to get, girl, right? Like that's, it's
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know. It's just it's over the top. So,
Yes. In fact, the descriptions of the angels and things like that are just they're wild.
I know. It's like drag
Yes.
on steroids, right? Like it doesn't, just not like multiple eyes. It's like covered in eyes.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
eyes are kind of like rhinestones and
Yes.
yeah.
I never
Yeah.
thought of it that way, but that's true.
Yeah.
Very showy.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me think of like Copacabana kind of thing. Showgirls.
Yes.
Yeah, these winged creatures in the throne room. Yeah. Hey.
One thing I wanted to ask specifically, and I preached on this once. I said that you can love Revelation for all the reasons we just talked about, but there are a couple of passages where there are parting shots. I was thinking about verse 21a, 22:15, where he has these lists of people who are fornicators and all these
Right.
things.
Right.
And
Right.
it's they look like they're parting shots. Like
Yeah.
everything's great and we're all redeemed and things are lovely,
Except for
but
you,
except for you.
including the dogs. The dogs are left out.
Yeah.
I'm like, who wants to be in a heaven where there are no dogs? Like that's messed up.
Right.
Right.
I guess
Yeah.
to me it looks like trying to control the message, where the author is
Yeah.
trying to threaten people to control the message.
Yeah.
How do you see that? And also, I see how people use this. I mean, they use the lake of
Yeah.
fire. Of course, they use the beast, and
Yeah.
they use these
Yeah.
couple of verses. Uh,
Yeah.
how do we defang these verses? And
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because on one hand, like the doors to the city are all open, but
hmm
yet there are these outsiders.
yeah,
And it's this really kind of ambivalent image, right? Are all people really going to be able to be in, or what?
yeah,
Um, and I think there are a couple ways of reading, and the couple ways, the people who, there's a couple of other scholars who I think read these in really effective ways. One of the people I really like who reads this text is Eric, my colleague Eric Thomas, who
okay,
talks about, who reads Revelation and this image in relationship to like the queer dance floor. And it's
uh-huh.
like, uh, you know, we actually don't want to be inside the city. Like who wants to be in a city that is so sanitized that there are like no dogs,
Yes,
right?
it looks like
And
a
so,
hospital ward.
right, like so his move is to say, yeah, like okay, so we're outside. This is where our new Jerusalem is.
hmm
Um, and yeah, you can be outside, like those of us who are outside, we will create our own New Jerusalem. It doesn't
hmm
matter. You don't, if you don't want to include us,
Yeah.
fine. Like we don't need it. Like we will create our own. So there's that way of kind of, you know, like it's related to, there's a queer scholar of color, last name Munoz, and I
hmm
can't remember first name right now, but has a book called Disidentification. And that's a sort of move of disidentification. It's like, yeah, you can call me a dog and like a fornicator or whatever. Um, I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with it. And I'm going to be that.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to use it for power. It's like reclaiming the idea of queer, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can call me queer. Yeah, I'm queer. And yeah, and that's okay.
That's
I
okay.
accept that, and um, and I'm gonna make my own world around that. And yeah, so that's one way. I think a really
Uh-huh.
effective way of reading it. There's another scholar, Yii-Jan Lin, who has a book. I thought I had it right here um on my desk, called Immigration and Apocalypse.
Uh-huh.
And she talks about how this image um, gets used in the US around sort of border,
Oh,
to
uh-huh.
talk about borders and immigration. And she talks about it in really profound and helpful ways. Um, I mean, and I think one of the things she highlights is how um, it's never kind of complete and it's never effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So John may try to
Yes.
create, but
He
it's not
doesn't succeed.
effective.
Yes.
Yeah, like these borders are not effective, and they're about scarcity,
Yeah,
right? It's like saying, oh, we've got to, put boundaries on this place because there's
right.
not enough beauty or purity or love or
Right,
whatever
right.
for everyone, so we have to limit it. Um, and that's really not, when we're thinking about like the idea of a New Jerusalem or something like that, that's a really not a very powerful way of thinking about it, especially if you want to think
Yeah.
about this as God's power and God's love in this place. Why do some people have to be, sort of limiting it? Doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think there are ways of reading it that are provocative, but they do require pushing back at the text and saying, yeah, John, I think
Yeah, yeah.
you're just wrong there. And maybe there's a party happening outside the New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
That's where the fun is, and you just don't. You're such a, party pooper that you don't see it. So
Well, it reminds me a lot of the way people use 1 Corinthians 6, 9, and 10,
yeah,
the laundry
yeah,
list, right? Wherever you have a
yeah.
laundry
The
list, then you
vice
can
list.
pick out the people you hate in the
Yeah,
laundry list and make that a
yeah,
new gospel or new Torah or whatever.
yeah.
Um,
No,
I,
it's a vice list, and they're really cultural, right? Like it's
yes.
kind of like he's not, and it's the same with Paul, right? They're
Yeah.
not even really thinking about these things. They're just like listing everybody that they don't like
Yeah.
or who are culturally on the outside,
Hmm.
um, and naming them on the outside. And yeah, it's yeah,
Yet
I
also
don't buy it.
not recognizing that those are abusive relationships like Paul's talking about. And well, there's always the tension between exclusion and inclusion that's
Yes,
throughout church history, right? And
yeah,
certainly big
it's
today. And it just seems like maybe John's engaging in an exclusion
mhm.
moment. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, he is. And I think yeah, that's a very kind of narrow understanding of God and
Uh-huh.
God's love and power, right? To think that there needs to be this kind of exclusion. And yeah, I just think that it's one of the places where I think, again, I would resist revelation on that.
Yeah. So
Or just and find myself outside of the New Jerusalem, and that's okay. So
if queer reading of scripture, especially this, is a way of including more people than has traditionally been the case, how do you manage with people who say, well, there has to be a line, there has to be a place where you're in or you're out, where you accept Jesus or you don't accept Jesus and that sort of thing. How can we relook at that
yeah.
boundary that people constantly want to erect?
Yeah. I'm such a brat. I'm like, no, I don't have to believe that. Yeah. I'm like, no, like there doesn't have to be an in and an out, or you don't
Yeah.
have to, no, I just don't, I guess, buy it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that there are places in the text that suggest otherwise. I think,
Yeah.
reading the idea, in Paul that, Christ's faith saves, one way of reading Christ's faith is,
Hmm.
or the faith of Christ is to think that Christ's faith saves all humanity, right?
Hmm.
But it doesn't matter, that it's more about grace.
Yeah.
Um, And so I think that there are places in the text that also bear that out that say, no, you don't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
That we are all sort of in this tradition. I mean, one way of reading Christian tradition is that we're all moving towards becoming one with Christ or becoming
Yes.
one with God.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, and the sort of the human diversity is one way of God's creation being beautiful,
Uh-huh.
and good. So, so I guess I just resist that idea that there has to be an outside, or there
Yes.
has to be an inside and an outside. Um, yeah,
That's
I know that's
that's
not always
most
a
of
very
that's
not a
most of the
very yeah
conversation that I have online is with people who say, "Well, there's got to be a boundary. There's got to be a
yeah
an acceptable and unacceptable." And I go,
yeah.
"Well, why?"
Well,
And
and why, and then why does it have to be around gender or sex, right? How about
yes.
if we make this boundary about like love and,
Mm-hmm.
showing kindness to people and like, yeah, so my boundary is, people who are hateful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are the people that I will, who show hate towards others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, to people who, are hateful towards animals or to the creation or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like, why this boundary?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and okay, and my dog is gonna bark again because I have someone just came in the door. Yeah,
Very protective.
typical Chihuahua. Yeah, yeah. So why this boundary? That's the question.
So I guess to bring some closure to this, I said I think so. Reckoning with Revelation, I think, is a great way to approach Christianity and one's own faith journey. W- when we just talked about some of the harmful and helpful ways for understanding Revelation and how that can sort of open up new horizons for people to understand maybe where they draw the line for themselves. Um, what are some ways that Christians can view Revelation? Yeah, I was thinking there's that book by Steve Gregg, I guess the one that has the four different preterist,
Oh
futurist,
yeah, yeah,
historical, which I think is a very evangelical way of looking at it. But I found it
yeah.
helpful because I go, oh, at least we can have a conversation about different
Right,
interpretive methods.
right.
Um, uh, it still bounds it too much, right? Because then it says you have to believe one of these things, right? Or
Yeah,
whatever. But
yeah.
how would you take somebody who's really going into it to kind of relax a little bit about their interpretive methods and learn to love the book?
Yeah, I think yeah, learn to love the book of Revelation without I think I think sort of taking seriously how again, I think it's the and yeah, my sorry about my dog again. But I think again like looking at how people have made sense of the text over time
Yeah.
can be really helpful and seeing that there are really a variety of ways of understanding the book. Um I think digging into some of the history.
Yeah.
Um And I do like if people are really interested, there's a great book by there's a couple great books out there here let me grab my dog that introduce these options
Hmm.
or introduce new ways to think about the book. One is by a scholar named Robyn Whitaker. She's in
Okay.
Australia and it's part of the Bible for Normal People series,
Uh-huh.
which is the online series, and it's called Revelation for Normal People. And she's got a great little book on Revelation.
Ah, okay.
Um, there's a new book coming out by a scholar named Gregg Carey, and he's a really great scholar.
Hmm.
And it's called Rereading Revelation. I really recommend that to
Okay.
help like going back to the text with more of like a critical view and within the
Uh-huh.
Christian tradition. And one other person, the work of Barbara Rossing is someone I really recommend. She has a
Oh,
book called
okay.
Rapture Exposed, and it
Hmm.
really kind of it might be a little dated because she's really focused on like the Left Behind series and things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Really,
Hmm.
um, I don't know. I think it really helps people um sort of, yeah, begin to think about the text in new ways. So I
Yeah.
think those are some really great resources for people who are
Okay.
interested in learning more about Revelation, and trying to think about different ways of opening up the text.
I think it's such important work, and
Yeah.
I'll do my best to capture some of the references you've made
Yeah.
and put them in the notes so people can look them up. Also, if you can send me your commentary, and I'll make sure I have that in the notes as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And
So,
I have it right here. I have a
oh,
picture.
there
Um,
that's what it
yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Um, yeah. If you send me your address, I will send you a
Okay.
copy too.
Oh, wonderful.
Your actual
Physical
physical.
address.
Yes, I'll send you a copy of it.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Thank you so
yeah.
much. I just really appreciate our time together. And like I said, I think this is really important work. I will continue to follow you and watch. And anybody who is listening to this, you've got to follow. And what's in TikTok? What's your
It's just Lynn Huber, Lynnhuber.
yes, and follow
Yeah.
Lynn on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. And sorry about Tommaso. Yeah,
Oh, well, that's part of the package, right?
I guess
We get
so.
Tommaso
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you
thank.
so much.
All right, yeah, and just like I say always in my people say lots of things about the Bible that aren't really there, and
Mhm.
that's especially true in the Book of Revelation. So I wish all of you listeners, God bless you, um, and thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.